guys, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Grace. I'm a yoga teacher, and in today's quick little session I'm going to be taking you through Bakasana or crow pose and giving you some handy tips and tricks to help you master this hand balance. So it goes without saying, please don't practice crow pose without properly warming up your body and your wrists. We are going to do a few little counter poses for the wrists in this practice, but make sure you're not coming into this cold. So the first thing I want us to do is come into Malasana or Yogi Squat, which is a really common pose that often precedes Bakasana, especially in your vinyasa classes. So I want to shed a bit more light on how they translate onto each other. So let's come into our Yogi Squat. Come up to stand, feet to the long edges of your mat, turn your toes out slightly, your heels in. Take a big breath in at the top, and then no rush with this as you exhale. Sink your bum down between your heels. Slide your upper arms inside your knees, palms to prayer, and lift the chest. You probably feel this a lot in your lower back, maybe outside edge of the hips, maybe in your ankles as well. And if you want to, go for a little bit of movement here, so no pressure to stay still in your Yogi Squat. Couple of deep breaths. Awesome. Okay, now here, the most important thing I want you to focus on in your Malasana, in terms of preparing you for Bakasana, is your knee and upper arm connection. So just make sure you can feel your upper arms pushing into your knees, and at the same time I want you to apply a little bit of pressure to those upper arms with the knees. So at the same time we're pushing out with the arms and squeezing in with the knees. So I want you to do that and just hold. So we'll hold for 3, squeeze and push. Keep the chest lifted for 2. Keep those knees squeezing in, last 1. Amazing, and just relax into it. Maybe lift those hips. Take a little rock from side to side. Awesome, and just come down onto your mat. So the reason I wanted to take us through Malasana is to get us familiar with that sensation of bringing the knees in contact with the upper arms and resisting that contact with the upper arms. Okay, so with that done, let's come into the entrance for our Bakasana. First thing I want to talk about is the placement of our hands. When you come into Bakasana, make sure that your hands are shoulder width. So you can practice this from tabletop. Bring your hands directly under your shoulders and make sure you're spreading out your fingers. Try not to jam your fingers together. And slightly lift your knuckles. So you don't want your hands completely flat on your yoga mat. You want to almost imagine Spider-Man hands. So we're gripping the mat with the fingertips and we're feeling that strong connection between the heels of the hands and the mat as well. So once you feel you're comfortable with your hand positioning and placement, we're then going to lift our hips up high and walk the feet in. So you might already start to feel a couple of things begin to happen here. If your palms are lifting off the mat a little bit, then what I want you to do is drop your hips just a little bit so the palms can come down. Now make sure your hands aren't super close to your feet or too far ahead of you. You want to find that sweet spot in between. So this is really our first. So this is really part of the setup for Bakasana. You want to make sure this is nailed before we take it any further. Now from here we're going to look forward. Another really common thing I tend to see in Bakasana is just looking down at our yoga mats. Make sure you're looking forward. Reconnect that hand mat connection, so grip your yoga mat. And now's where we want to think back to our Malasana. So we're going to bend our knees, and we'll notice as we do this the hips start to sink naturally a little bit. What I don't want you to do is come all the way down here, because then what we'll be left with is a little bit of a frog hop into Bakasana, which is what we don't want. Keep the hips as high as you can whilst bending the knees, and bring those knees outside the upper arms, and at the same time come back to that sensation we've just created. So push out and in at the same time. Now look forward, lift the hips, and start to take the weight into the toes. So this is what we can have a little play with to start having a go at some air time in Bakasana. Hips high, look forward, come onto those toes, and then rock back. I'm going to go for a couple more of these. So just have a little go. look forward, rock forward, feel your core starting to fire up, and then come back out of it. Last one, make sure you're breathing as you do this. And let's release. Let's take some weight off those wrists. So come into your Yogi Squat variation. Doesn't matter if your heels are down. Make a prayer with your hands and then a fist, and just gently roll out the wrists. Awesome work, well done. It's kind of first step towards Bakasana. You got this. Stay nice and strong. Okay, let's come back into that position, and this time what I want you to try and do is lift one foot up and off the mat. So as you lift your foot off your mat, you're going to squeeze the heel towards the corresponding bum cheek, squeeze your core and keep looking forward. Drop that foot down and switch. So let's have a go. Hands exactly where they were, find that upper arm knee connection, look forward, lift the hips. Heel to bum, and back. Let's have a couple of goes at that. Keep that core firing. Remember to drop out after each go. Think about your hand and your mat connection. I know there's a lot going on. Squeeze and release. Amazing, well done. I'm going to give you a little option here. If you're noticing at this point in your Bakasana, when you're starting to lift your heel towards your bum, you're noticing that your hips have come all the way down. Now, there's a couple of things that you can do here. One, simply to practice, keep those hips up high, or we can accelerate this process a little bit by coming onto blocks. So I'm going to grab 2 yoga blocks here, and I'm going to come to stand on the yoga blocks. Now, it might feel a little bit scary at first, but like I said, don't worry, you got this. Exactly the same as before, lift the hips, and what the blocks are helping us do is keep those hips high while we move the knees to touch the upper arms. Rock forward, squeeze, and back. There's a little cheat. There's a little tip to help you progress your Bakasana a little bit if you need to. Okay, let's do one more little wrist release before we have a go at the full thing. Just come into a tabletop pose and make circles with your shoulders over your hands. Go in both directions. And remember, with hand balances, really is a case of finding the balance. That's what I keep saying about the hips. The higher you lift your hips, essentially, the more you're going to start stacking your torso, which is going to create the balance required to hold Bakasana. If you feel like Bakasana has become a little bit of a chest exercise and you feel like you're almost pushing the floor away from you on a bit more of a horizontal plane, then you really need to focus on lifting your hips. That's what's going to get you into Bakasana. Okay, let's have a little go. You're going to lift one heel towards your bum. Squeeze, 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 find that balance. Remember to keep breathing, keep looking forward, and then bring that other heel up so you can hold. So I'm going to set up exactly the same.